Thank you. Hello, finally. I'm Gary. Nice to meet you all. I hope everyone's having a really, really good time. It's a pleasure to be here at a Symfony event, and you'll find out a little bit more why in a little bit. I'd like to tell you my story of how I became a developer, 9 to 5, really no interest in anything apart from just working, going home, earning my money, to being up on this stage. This is me when I was younger, skinnier. I've got some hair in that photograph, which is kind of nice. Yeah, that's me right there. Yeah, that brings back some memories. You can see I'm holding a joystick. There's a recurring theme through this talk, so I guess we should just make a start. I went to university in the UK. Hands up, how many people have a degree in university education in the room? Out of interest? Fantastic. Well done. Me, I failed university. I guess, that doesn't make such a big deal. Before we kind of make a move, I went to University of Leicester, which is in the Midlands in the UK. I failed. I guess I dropped out. I didn't really enjoy the course. So I started living with the students, but I got a job, updating a database for a gas provider in the UK. So I was living in student accommodation with students, but earning reasonably good money. So I lived like a king for a year until the university found out and kicked me out. So yeah. Then I went to a small university in South Wales called Pontypridd, which I also didn't complete. But that time I didn't complete it because I went on to do a job that I wanted to do when I left university anyway. So I guess we should address something at the moment. You may have noticed I have quite a strange accent. I'm from a tiny, tiny town in South Wales called Port Talbot. I think Berlin is somewhere over there. There's a really defining industry in Port Talbot that it just defines it around the world. People who work in certain industries will recognize the name Port Talbot and think of only one thing. Here's an example. If you do a Google image search for Berlin, this is the kind of thing you're likely to see. Beautiful, right? The amazing landmarks, stunning pictures. If you do a Google image search for Port Talbot, things aren't quite so rosy. Yeah, these are real photographs of Port Talbot. This is a town that's defined by its steel industry. This is true. This is how close the steel mill is to the actual houses. And that's where I grew up. And for somebody who's failed university twice, a steel mill is a really good place to get a computer job. So I'm kind of lucky that I lived on the doorstep of this huge industry which has a huge number of processes. It's called British Steel. When I worked there, then it became Chorus. Now it's Tata Steel. And the year was 1999. And I wonder how many people in this room are old enough to remember that 1999 was a golden age for getting into software and computing because of something called the Y2K bug. Does anyone remember the Y2K bug? Yeah, cool. So this was this huge story in the media that in the year 2000, because of sloppy programming back in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, we were only storing dates as 2 digits. So the year field in a date was only being stored as 2 digits. And so when we rolled around to 0, computers weren't going to know what the hell to do. And planes are going to fall out of the sky, and banks are going to lose all your money. The military is going to not be able to do anything because they can't get into their systems. And then, of course, when the new year of 2000 came around, none of these things happened. And the media said, oh, it was just a big scare story. But of course it wasn't. People like us were diligently behind the scenes, patching code, checking microprocessors, checking dates, checking how things were running. So it was a good example of how developers solved the problem en masse. My job in there, it sounds like I was doing some amazing programming. My job was to actually look at a spreadsheet of the microprocessors on the planet, and then either phone, email, or check the website of the vendors of those microprocessors to see if they marked them as being Y2K compliant, and then just update the spreadsheet. Like, I didn't touch a line of code. I sat there on databases, phoning people, emailing people, and it turns out you get a lot of time when you're doing that job to sit and wait for calls to be returned or to wait for emails to be returned. So I did what most people would do, I think, in my situation, where you're at work, you know, you've got a private office, you're on a Windows machine, and you've got a lot of time to yourself. I played MAME ROMs most of the day. So I don't know if everyone knows what MAME is. MAME is an arcade emulator that runs on most PCs and allows you to download vintage arcade game ROMs legally, I guess. I don't know, I addicted to something really bad. And you can play them on your desktop computer. So I spent a lot of time playing MAME ROMs while waiting for calls to return. Anyone recognize this game? You can shout out or... Yeah, shout.
Diana?
There may be a translation issue here because it's almost certainly not called the same thing in Germany as I know it. So, but it's called Surface Charlie. Great game, really, really difficult. And when I got bored of playing the MAME ROMs, like we were working in the process control department, and the process control department was the view of the plant. So all the microprocessors are pushing data constantly into an Oracle database at the time. How thick is the steel at this point? How hot is this furnace? You know, that kind of thing. How much volume of steel do we have in this drum? There's microprocessors checking all this stuff and pushing millions of events and data a second into an Oracle database. And we used to pay hundreds of thousands of pounds to third-party contractors to write screens to visualize this data. And a lot of the data didn't need to be in real time. A lot of the managers would only look at this screen once a day to see a snapshot of how the mill was looking. And I was thinking, there must be a better way to do this. There must be a way to just pull a snapshot of this data out of Oracle and serve it over our intranet. Intranets were like a thing in the early 2000s where you could access stuff only internally, you know, like an internet, but you could only access it over the local network. So I was looking, we had a Microsoft infrastructure. We had Windows NT servers, we had Internet Information Server installed, so I started looking at something called Active Server Pages. Oh, there's an intake of breath over there. Somebody's worked with Active Server Pages, I can tell. So Active Server Pages are Microsoft's implementation of PHP, effectively. Server-side VB script that renders into HTML, very similar to how PHP works. Active Server Pages are really, really interesting in that at the time, you had to pay to have Microsoft's infrastructure in order to run Active Server Pages. So you needed an Internet Information Server, which is very expensive. You needed a bridge to the Oracle database, which is very expensive. You know, you needed an NT4 back in the day server license to run IIS on, very expensive. You know, you could do this in a large industrial environment where you had a budget. But of course, when you start doing these things in work, I can think of a million little projects I'd like to do when I get home. Websites I'd like to throw up on the internet and see what happens. And you can't afford those kind of prices to pay for Microsoft's technology. The interesting thing about this logo, which I genuinely found on the internet, is it's saying using ASP is like trying to balance dice end on end. Not so good, or is it like it's like rolling a dice and you need a 6 for it to work? I can't decide, but it's a genuine logo I found when I was looking to do this talk. So I found something called Personal Homepage. This is 2000, very early version of PHP, which we all use and love today. PHP hypertext, too much recursion. Yeah. Can't be done with that. I was playing a lot of online games then, and I say then, I play a lot of online games right now. Anyone into big online games? Yeah? No? A few people? Anyone playing PUBG at the moment? PlayerUnknown's Battleground? Are you equally as infuriated every game you play as I am? You know, it's good. Back in the 2000s, there was only one game you played online, and that was Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike was the de facto game. I know it's still around now, CSGO. And the only way you really played Counter-Strike was in a clan. You got together with a group of mates, or you found people, like-minded people, you hang out with them, and you played games. And the interesting thing about Counter-Strike in 2000, 2001 was, it's not about how good your clan is, it's about how good your clan's web page is, whether your clan's any good or not. So I just learned about this free thing called PHP, and I was in high demand because I could make data-backed websites for a clan, which I pulled in the latest results from the ladder. And so I did. I made something like this. This is a genuine website from early 2000s. This should be familiar to a lot of people who've been around the internet this long. Doesn't hold up so well today. But this was great. This was my first introduction into actually web development for my own use. I love this site. I had no backup of it on my computer, why would I? So I turned to the Wayback Machine to try and find some pictures of this website. It's very interesting. There was only 3 pictures on the Wayback Machine of this website. The first one was of a login to a Plex control panel, back when we used share posting. That was, that brings back some memories. And there was this one. And the third one was this. That's the honest truth. This is off the M&S shop domain was the guy who owned the business called M&S shop who let us host for free on his share posting. It's a genuine truth. I think that just shows you that I haven't come very far since my origins in PHP, because I still see errors like this today. I kind of working in British Steel, my stuff had gone. I was not doing as much development in work. I was doing some ASP development, but I was much more interested in doing PHP development. I felt like that was where the future is. The community was better. I lost a lot of motivation and then started really playing far too many main ROMs in work again. So it's time to move on. Anyone know this one? This is a much more Double Dragon. Yeah, good. So I did what every person who knows a little bit of coding and wants to make some money. Everybody, I want to make a bit of money. I'm a single man. I've got no ties. I know a little bit of PHP. I became a contractor. And I was an absolutely awful developer at the time. I mean, really bad. If your metric is OOP, which actually probably didn't exist to an extent in PHP back then, if you're talking about being a bad developer because you copy and paste code, you don't do code reusability, no solid principles, all that stuff, I was just writing top-down PHP pages with HTML mixed in with logic, the way I think a lot of people from that era would have started. But I was a really good developer, or an okay developer, if your metrics were getting stuff done on time and in budget. I was like the worst coder, but I could just get stuff done. I was really pragmatic. So I did a lot of really, really interesting work at the time for companies like Intel, big companies, Fiat, the car manufacturer. I got a reputation for taking jobs which should have taken 6 months, and then they realized the person they hired was never going to get it done, and they would call me to just come in and just make it work. A lot of these stuff were really short-lived projects, so it didn't really matter that the code was no good, because I was hired to maintain it anyway. The Intel job was for their resellers. They could log in and see how many points they earned in a 6-week promotion. So the promotion only ran for 6 weeks. The job was to take an Excel spreadsheet every week, parse it into a database, and then return some XML to the reseller, which was shown in a Flash movie, remember that? To say how far they'd gone. And yeah, it was terrible code. And they used to give me the spreadsheet on a Thursday, and they would need it updated by the Friday morning. And of course, the spreadsheet was in a completely different format every time they gave it to me. Great, so parsing spreadsheets isn't fun anyway. But I did it. I stayed up all night every Thursday, and I got it done. And I really enjoyed that time of life. I was a single man, as I say. I went through phases of being incredibly rich to incredibly poor to incredibly rich as the money for the jobs came in, and I spent it all. It was great. But unfortunately, life comes along, wife and kids come along, it's time to get a real job. It's time to settle down and to take a regular steady income to know what you get month to month. I went to work for a company called Vivo Digital, who were, in the interview they told me they were pioneers in IPTV. If you remember IPTV when it was not something everybody does every second of every day, TV over IP was a big deal, and this is a big deal, digital signage. We go into any little mom and pop store, any little tiny shop, and the cash register's got a digital signage system on it right now. We see them everywhere, we take them for granted. Back in the day, they were a new thing, and using your TV in a way to display, adverts and information was kind of cool tech to be in. We were writing a modular system where some clients had all of the features of the digital signage product, and other clients only paid for some of the features. So I didn't have a clue how to make this work, so I just used to comment out the menu items for the things they hadn't paid for in the HTML. This worked. We sell the servers, we put them on site, it was fine. We got a lull, and I got the opportunity to rewrite the PHP signage system. I wanted to make it genuinely modular. So I wanted to be able to not just comment stuff out in the HTML, but really easily turn parts of the system on and off, depending on the customer. Of course, we turn to Google, type in PHP modular framework into Google, and you get, even in 2009, I think this was, you get a huge list of frameworks, of which Symfony would have been one, Symfony 1 back in the day, called Ignite. I actually chose this framework. Anyone heard of the Zen framework? I expected you all to boo and throw things at me when I said that. Yeah, it's time to put my hands up in the air. I use Symfony a lot. I use Symfony components a lot in my day-to-day job, but I'm a co-contributor to the Zen framework. If you haven't heard of the Zen framework, it's like the American version of Symfony, I guess is the way. I love the Zen framework community. I love the Symfony community. There was a time back in the day where there was loggerheads, there were arguments, there were horrible, my framework is better than your framework arguments. Zen framework even had a 404 page saying, page not found, we hear Symfony doesn't have this problem at one point. But I think everyone in the room would agree, you know, as Symfony users yourself, things are much, much better. Now, there's a lot of interoperability. Zen framework and Symfony, two sides of the same coin. The same core principles of maintainability, you know, not as little magic as possible, verbosity, trying to make sure that your code is done correctly and maintainable, and that over, you know, ease of use, unlike maybe some other frameworks. I love the Zen framework. I love using Symfony. I use Symfony console component is the de facto console component. I think Symfony even has a Zen library in the PSR7 bridge now. That's how far things have come, you know. So, I'm sorry. Some of this is going to be about Zen framework, but you know, this is equally applicable to any PHP project. So yeah, substitute Symfony if it makes you feel better. So I found the Zen framework. I learned MVC. I learned basic object-oriented principles. Yes, I learned them in 2009. That's not a lie. I found that I quickly learned how to use Zen framework 1 to rapidly produce MVC sites. I became an amazing developer. Like when I found Zen framework, I was awesome. Who laughed there? Hang on. Of course I wasn't an amazing developer, but I was in that really scary point where you think you know as much as you ever need to know. You think that there's not much left to learn, but that's like a false peak, you know, when you're climbing a hill and you think you need to get to the top and you take a couple more steps and there's another huge peak behind you. I was a terrible developer, but that's the point where I realized that there was so much more to learn, and I had so many questions I needed answered that kind of turned a corner for me, really. And luckily for me, I found an IRC channel. I was lucky that I knew what IRC was from my gaming background. IRC being the communication medium of choice for elite Counter-Strike clans. IRC is like, if you don't know, it's like Slack, but harder to connect to, I guess. Something like that. Yeah, so I found ZF Talk. It's amazing, where I realized that I had an epiphany at this point. I've gone from being a solo developer or a team of 2 developers to finding out that there are more people who do the same job that I do. There are more people using the same tools as I use. You know, I'm not alone. And for people sitting in a conference situation, it's pretty obvious, right? It's pretty obvious now. But I'm sure that some of you who don't work in teams will remember a time where you were just sat alone and not really aware that there was a larger community, didn't even realize that these things existed, didn't even realize that you could talk about your problems and how you solved them with other people. That was definitely an epiphany for me. I met some amazing people in that channel who I later went to meet in real life. People like Ryan Mauger, who helped me selflessly with my really, really inane questions. Rob Allen, which you may know as a speaker and blogger, really, really helpful guy, and Catherine Reed the same. But Rob Allen and Ryan Mauger dragged me kicking and screaming. I really did want to go to the first ever PHP Southwest user group in the UK. User groups are amazing, and I really wish I'd found them sooner in my career. I mean, user groups are super. I was at the first ever PHP Southwest. There's a picture there. Can you see me? That's me. You can tell by the belly, right? Yeah, you can recognize that. It was really, really cool to get out there and realise, number one, it was amazing to meet some people I only met on the internet, which again is weird now to say that, because I guess we all do that fairly often. Come to events, meet people we've been tweeting with or tweeting at, talking to an IRC Slack or whatever, but you know, that was kind of a big deal for me. Yeah, my wife, when I said to her I'm going to Bristol to meet some guys I met on the internet, was not, she was not particularly amused. But I guess back in Vivo Digital, things had run its course. It was a demanding job, it wasn't paid particularly well. My boss who I shared an office with was, who owned the company, was coming in less and less, which meant I had obviously more time to play main ROMs when he wasn't there. And this is a really good game. Anyone know? It's not Castlevania, no? Rules and Ghosts. Yes, not Ghosts and Goblins. If you said that, you owe me a drink. I decided, you know, it's time to move on. These things happen in tech. Some of us move around quite a lot. Others not so much. You know, I've been fortunate enough to be able to move on in my career fairly quickly. I went to work for a company called MICROCOSM. This was an unbelievable opportunity, really. Pay was terrible, but the opportunity was really good. And they somehow acquired a license. I use the word acquired deliberately, I don't know how they got it. But they acquired a license to write a game on Facebook with an official Lord of the Rings license, which, being it was a company which was 8 people in Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales in the UK, that's kind of unbelievable, right? If you remember Facebook games, we're talking more about databases with pretty front ends and encourage you to spam your friends as much as possible. That was the golden era of Facebook games. Mafia Wars, you may remember, things like Farmville. It was that era where your feed was constantly filled with saying, come and harvest my crops, come and kill this person for me, be a pirate, yarr, all that stuff. It was amazing as a developer, you know, to find new and innovative ways for people to spam their friends. Was it a game? I guess if repeatedly clicking on random buttons is a game, it was a game. It was cool. It was officially Lord of the Rings, though. You know, that is based on the books, not the movies. That was an important distinction, but we had the license. We were using Zen Framework at this point. Zen Framework 2 had come out, and I guess the next slide is I've talked about epiphanies and red letter days and big turning points in my career, but honestly, this was the biggest turning point in my career ever. It's my first ever contribution to open source. This is a Zen session for Zen Framework 2, where we've gone from, if you remember, moving from Symfony 1 to 2, we went from underscore separated class ends to namespaces. I guess that happened in 1 to 2 in Symfony. Maybe it happened earlier. I hope so. So yeah, I wrote a pull request that made Zen session compatible with Zen Framework 2 instead of just Zen Framework 1. Yeah, the interesting thing here is how Matthew Wirafini, project lead of Zen Framework, accepted that pull request. He's our Fabian Potencier, you know, he's our grand leader of Zen Framework. And you know, this is the way to welcome new people into a community when they do pull requests. Review, merge, and push. Nice command, particularly the tests. Come on. I've never written tests before this point. Realistically, I've never written tests at this point because I just copy and pasted some tests from someone else had written and just changed a couple of characters. This is the pull request, so this is my first ever pull request to open source. I added 3 characters to a regular expression and copy and pasted 2 tests. Thank you very much. It counts, right? It counts. Matthew is an amazing person, and Matthew's one of the people in my life who I'm thankful that I met in real life, who's become a friend, and it's amazing. I managed to get that first pull request to Zen Framework accepted. So I'd like you to guess what I did immediately after that pull request was accepted. Any guesses? Write another one? That's a good person would do that. That's not what I did. Any other guesses? Shout out.
I gave you your resume.
Oh, you spoiler! You spoiled my joke. I updated my resume. I updated my CV. I am now a contributor to Zen Framework. Those 3 characters in a regular expression, and those two copy and paste tests mean I'm now a contributor to Design Framework, which is amazing. How many people here contribute to an open source project? Okay, keep your hand up if you put it on your CV. Everyone who put their hands down, you're a fool. This is the way to do it. You genuinely do not realize, because while contributing is scary, right? Contributing is scary. Everyone, I'm not here to judge anyone. Contributing is a big step to take. And I was lucky, I took a baby step. And I had even that 3 characters added to a regular expression and 2 copy and paste tests. I asked some people I knew to check that before I ever pushed it up to GitHub. I'll tell you now. Because it's so scary, right? It's scary as hell. You know, you look at it that you're pushing your code up for other people to judge you. That's a scary state of affairs. But I look at it a different way. I look at it that when I push my pull requests up to GitHub, I'm getting free code reviews from people who are more experienced, better developers, smarter than me. It's free learning. If people say to me, oh, you really shouldn't be doing it this way, you should be doing it that way, that's something I've learned from somebody who knows better than I. That's free learning for me. And that's an amazing way to look at it. I think if you can shift your perspective from it being criticism to education, contributing to open source becomes highly addictive. I really mean that. I have bettered myself as a developer from code reviews, from open source projects, more than 11. I've learned so much. And it's an opportunity to be taken. It's a win for everyone. The other thing to remember is that most people in open source really want you to get your stuff merged. Most people want, if you fix a bug, and that bug gets merged, that bug is fixed for everyone. So most people want you to get your stuff merged. If you add a feature, and that feature is merged, it gets added for everybody. I say most people, though. Does anyone know Marco? Anyone in his tutorials yesterday, the day before? Lovely guy Marco, let me make that clear. Marco is a harsh code reviewer, let's just say. So for those who didn't know, Marco is the maintainer of Doctrine ORM, so a product that most of you should be very familiar with. And Doctrine ORM is a very unique package in that it's highly complex and people will always try and do weird and wonderful edge case stuff with it that will break it. So Marco is such a defensive developer when he comes to Doctrine because he doesn't want anything to break for anyone. BC breaks are his sort of absolute enemy, so he's incredibly defensive. I submitted some pull requests to Marco's review. The comments like this, that's lovely, that's really nice. Then you get comments, maybe a few more comments, some more comments maybe. Maybe another comment. Yeah, a comment. Oh, there's another comment. And you start to think that this little Mario is picking on you. This little Mario is there. There's Mario. Oh, Mario's over here. Mario's in my inbox. What's Mario doing there? Mario's here again. He's telling me I'm bad. Mario, Mario, you're watching me. Marco's always watching me. But honestly, while that is the extreme, you must remember if you contribute to Doctrine and your merge isn't accepted, there's always a very good reason. Marco's not maybe the most polite. But you're still getting the free code review. You're still getting the why this hasn't been merged. You're still learning something. It's free learning. It's definitely worth doing. Meanwhile, these 2 characters have dragged me to my first ever conference, which is PHP Northwest in 2012. I met the fabulous Evan Curry there, who we'll come back to later. American developer, huge contributor to Design Framework, wrote the module manager like when he was 19. This guy is scarily good at developing. I met the amazing Lorna Mitchell, who became my mentor for speaking. She's the one who taught me I probably shouldn't come on stage in shorts and a Hawaiian shirt, so you've got her to thank for that. I gave my first unconference talk there. That's how cocky I am. I went to my first conference and gave my first unconference talk. Really enjoyed it. Looks really good that I got 4 stars, but actually the only people in the room were people I called friends, so it's not very good. If you give a talk and you only get 4 stars from your friends, so yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Meanwhile, back in the One Ring, just to prove that game did exist, here's a screen cap. The Hobbit films were in production, and the Tolkien estate had realised that they should have been selling this license to a Lord of the Rings game for millions rather than giving it away to a small team. So we got our license revoked, sadly. That game made money, lasted a good while. I thoroughly enjoyed working on that. As a gamer myself, working on a game, is great fun. Yeah, I got my sacking over Skype, which is an interesting way to be dismissed. Certainly not great for the 4 weeks of notice I had to work. Played a lot of main ROMs in those 4 weeks. Anyone know this one? Surely. Burger Time. Yes, great. And we'll run through now. Nobody wants to see ins and outs of my career, but I went to work for a company called Yambo Artsbooks. It does seem that in this period of my life, I used to know work to annoy people because the company injects adverts into your mobile web pages, so you got me to thank for that technology as well. Really, the most important thing is I started to speak at events like the one I'm speaking at right now. I spoke at ZenCon for the first time, amazing experience, very lucky to do that. The important point about me being able to be accepted at ZenCon as one of my first conferences was I was accepted because of my contributions to that framework. They didn't say, oh, Gary is an amazing speaker, even though he's never spoken before, we'll accept him to speak. They said, we should really try and thank those people who have been contributing to our product, and we should then fly them over to California and ask them to speak at our conference. I only got accepted to speak at ZenCon, which is actually the first conference I ever got accepted to speak at, because of my contributions to open source. That's a fact. There's no way they would have accepted me without knowing that knowing who I was through my contributions. So that's the path that led me right to where I am today. And you don't really just have to contribute with code. This is, it's scary. Even though I'm trying to tell you to look at it as free learning, it's still scary. You can contribute with documentation. If you find when you're working on any project, any library, that the documentation is wrong or misleading or could be clearer, it takes a few minutes to fork the documentation and submit the pull request. And project maintainers love having the docs updated. They love having problems in the docs fixed. That's a really easy, nice way to do it. You can triage bugs on GitHub. The people who come along and fix the bugs really like it if there's a little comment that says, yes, I reproduced this bug in these conditions. That's an amazing way to be able to help the person who will come and fix it. That's not putting your code out there, even though you could at that point. It's really, really useful thing to do. You can write tests if you've been inspired by Chris's continual ranting about tests over the years. A really good place to practice your tests in an open source project that has Foo on them. I joined in the system we use to rate talks as speakers and conferences has not as many tests as people would like. So if you want to just practice writing tests, join it's a great project to do that on. You can provide answers on Stack Overflow. You can write your own blog posts. If you don't want to write documentation, write a blog post about it. That counts as contributing because you're helping people who Google a problem to find that problem and the solution that you found. It's also a really good way to build a brand and build yourself as a developer when you come to want to move on or look for more money. The important thing is that when you contribute to a project in any of these ways, you become an expert in it. You end up going, instead of just calling the public API, you end up delving into the code that powers that API. You end up looking in the vendor folder. You end up getting to know how the code works under the hood. That's really important, because knowing how the code works under the hood makes you an expert. And being an expert in something is amazing for increasing your salary or increasing your rates if you're a consultant. Contributing, this is the truth, and it's not said very often. We don't like to talk about money in this community. Being an expert in something, being a contributor to a project that people use and are looking for developers in, is a really, really, really good way to make more money. Oh, sorry. Is a really, really good way to make more money. I guess they're about the same these days anyway, so it doesn't matter, it's fine. I don't know about you, but I really, really like money. I really, really like money. And I don't think there's any shame. There's no shame in wanting to make as much money as you feel like you're worth. There's no shame in it. Another thing is that contributing to open source makes connections with other contributors. There's people in this room I've met through my contributions to open source. And these connections are also important to employers. If somebody asks you a question in an interview or in a casual conversation, and you can say, oh, yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I know X who wrote that. You know, for me, if someone asks me a question about doctoring, oh yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm really good friends with Marco, I can get him to answer that, you know, and get back to you. There's no shame in that. As long as it's a two-way street, you know. As long as they can come to you and ask you a question, there's no shame in that. This is what a lot of people don't realize, is that the developers who make it to making good money do so on the connections they build. And most of those connections are built through contributing to open source. And as I said, I really like money, so what's not to like, right? You become an expert, you make connections. It's great, both lead to more money. Equally as important for me is that my contributions to open source has made some real friendships. Friendships where I've been to people's weddings who I've met through contributing to open source. We've met up. I have some real proper lifelong friends I've made through this, which is also as important. Probably not as important as money to me, but it's up to you. It's fine. Meanwhile, I move on again, playing a lot of main ROMs. Let's go there. Anyone know this one? Sebastian, surely? No? Oh. Hackland. Probably my favourite arcade game of all time. I decided to go work for Rove. Rove is a company we talked about Evan earlier on. Evan, who we started a company called Rove. I love working for Rove. Rove is just a group of consultants. Zen Framework doesn't have a consulting arm like I guess SymfonyLive is through Symfony. Zen don't really do consulting around Zen Framework, so we kind of created our own company, which was contributors to the Zen Framework project and became the de facto consulting company for Zen Framework. Hired some amazing people. I mean, honestly, I worked with Evan, I worked with this crazy guy, James Titcomb. And when I said that Marco's always watching, you can tell that I wasn't lying. There he is there, peeking out. James quickly became like my de facto person to go for a beer with when I'm at events. The life of a speaker looks and sounds amazing, but it can be tiring and exhausting. And sometimes you just need friends to be able to decompress it. Another guy I turn to when I'm at events is Derek Breathens. So thank you, Derek. But the interesting thing about Derek is when I made friends with Derek, but now when I have questions about XDebug or date time extension, I've got that in my pocket, right? He can answer them for me. You can tweet your XDebug questions to Derek, he loves it. It's at Derek R, you'll see it there. Tweet him any of your XDebug questions, he absolutely loves it. No, I'm telling the truth. I met this guy, Kieran McNulty, who's author of PHP Spec, the DDD testing framework. Amazing guy as well. I got that in my pocket if I got questions about PHP Spec, right? The interesting thing about Kieran is what happens when you Google image search a picture of his name. So you're making slides, and you want to do a Google. If you can't see it, it's down there. A picture of me drinking a beer appears for some reason. That's kind of scary. I'd love to say that I left Rove because I was getting bored and I needed to play some more main ROMs, but that's not strictly true. Anyone know this one? Good guess. It's Rastan. Again, classic arcade game. You're very poor at arcade games in this room. Can I make that clear? Try harder. I'd love to say that I left Rove to go and work for an amazing company called JetBrains. Not strictly true. JetBrains, I wouldn't have left Rove for many people, but JetBrains is one of the companies who came calling. I work as a developer advocate for JetBrains. We make IDs. You may have heard of some of them. Anyone here use PHP Storm? Shame on you with your hands down. It's cool, whatever works for you, you know that. My job as a developer advocate, I get paid to come to these events and speak to people and meet the customers. If you ever have any problems or questions, you can tweet at me. This is the kind of thing I tend to get tweeted quite often. I can't help you with that side of it, but if you have feature requests, if you have bugs, if you'd like to discuss improvements in any area, yeah, definitely the person to speak to. I love doing that. JetBrains is amazing. I'm so lucky to be working with JetBrains. Interestingly, the path to JetBrains, my dream job, is this commit, this 3 characters for render expression and 2 copy and pasted tests commit. I did. If I could see the date, I would read it. 11th of November 2011. This my path to the job I love is from this. That's all I can say. It's amazing. I could easily end this talk right now saying, go away and contribute to open source because it worked for me and it can work for you. I really do hope you take that message away. I think I've tried to make the point as well as I can. It's amazing. But realistically, it's not all being for me about the beer and the hot dogs and the money. Open source has improved me as a person. Come from a very small town in South Wales, a steel-making town. You can imagine what that's like. I didn't know a lot of people who didn't look like me or didn't sound like me, who laughed when they thought of many people sounding like me. I get it, it's fine. But by contributing to open source and by being able to get to these conferences, I meet people who are amazing, people who look different from me, they are different from me, people I would have been guilty about maybe laughing behind my hands and muttering about, and I'm not proud of the person I was back then, but open source has really helped to open my eyes to diversity and differences in people. I'm more proud of the person I am now than I was then, that's for sure. And there's one more important thing I'd like to cover, because it's not just about the beer, the hot dogs and the elephants and the money. I was in True North PHP a couple of years ago. I met this guy, Chris, who is at the event. He's sitting there, my kayfabe enemy, if anyone knows what that means. Chris is an amazing guy, bands on about testing all day long, good message. Go and see his talk later on today. More importantly though, sorry Chris, I met this guy, Ed Finkler. If you haven't heard of Ed Finkler, Ed runs an amazing organisation called Open Source in Mental Illness, which is there to support and promote conversation and awareness of the mental health problem in technology. Technology, the mind that excels in technology and development is also, it seems, more partial to mental health difficulties. I was forced to confront my own mental health problems when I was at that talk in True North PHP. I was undiagnosed with my head in the sand for years. I suffer with severe anxiety disorder and some form of bipolar depression, and I was moved to tears in Ed's talk, and it forced me to go and seek some help. It forced me to go to my GP and get medication. My life is so much better because I was at that conference, and I wouldn't have been at that conference without my contributions to open source. I know that feels like a stretch. I know it feels like I'm tying something back, but in my mind, it's the absolute truth. It's all that serious from it. It's not, let's be honest. I'm a developer advocate. I fly around, I come to conferences. It is about the beer, right? It is about the hot dogs. It's totally about the elephants and the bumper cars, and it's definitely about the money. More importantly for me, I made a joke about it, it's definitely about the friends I've made. Yeah, 100%. I do stand here and I do try and give you the message that contributing to open source has changed my life. It seems like a really powerful, dramatic way to end. It's the way I genuinely feel. I haven't just said this, to try and put a message across that I think is good. I swear to you that open source, contributing to open source has changed my life. Thank you very much.